What's up, gamers? Welcome to another Cube video. Today I'm going to be going over my preferred draft methodology for cube drafting with two players, which I call Minneapolis Draft. You may have heard this referred to as Overturf Draft, as I am the progenitor of this draft style. I prefer the name Minneapolis Draft. I have cubed with two players using a lot of different draft methodologies. This does stand out as my preferred methodology, which makes sense. I did come up with it after all. But over time, I have only liked it more and more, and this is far and away my favorite way to cube draft with two players. Let's get to it. It might go without saying, but in case it doesn't, I generally use this draft style for Tubert's 180 card cubes for my two-player draft, so the cube design also kind of informs this, but the process does work for larger cubes. I have heard from players who have used Minneapolis Draft to draft larger cubes that they liked it quite well, but of course my focus is generally going to be on Tubert cubes. And on that note, before we really get into things, I do want to have a quick note here on storage. People often ask me what I keep my Tuberts in, and they just fit very cleanly into BCW 400 count boxes. You know, not to shill or anything. These are like a couple bucks at most LGSs across the country, but they fit. They're a really good size for a sleeved Tubert and however many basic lands you need. People also often ask me how many basic lands I keep with my Tuberts, so quick note on that. I have found that you will have more than enough with 25 of each. Sometimes I err closer to just having 20 or a little bit less even if I'm running out of space in the box, and a single sleeved 180 card cube plus that many basic lands in a 400 card count BCW box leaves a little bit of room for tokens, dice, that kind of stuff. So that is what I keep most of my Tuberts in. And if you were into playing unsleeved, or maybe you have like a desert Tubert where you don't need extra basic lands, those will actually fit pretty nicely into the 300 card count boxes, but those will be a bit tight if you want to do a single sleeve cube where you actually have basic lands that players can add to their decks. Anyway, the first step in cube drafting is of course to shuffle the cube. When it comes to shuffling a Tubert, this is comparatively easier. Other cubes, you can see this is the entire cube in my hand. This is the original recipe Tubert right here, so it can fit in one hand. It's a little tough to shuffle it all at once, but it is a lot easier than a larger cube, certainly a 360 or a 540 card cube. The reason I want to talk about shuffling, though, is as I see so many players just not do it very well, and I want to draw attention specifically to an article that Anthony Maddox put out for Lucky Paper Radio, introducing what he refers to as a broadcast shuffle. Essentially, what you want to be doing is making sure that every part of the cube is getting shuffled in with every other part of the cube. So you don't just want to grab a chunk of it and then just shuffle that all super thoroughly and then do that chunk by chunk. That would be equivalent to taking your 60 card deck and shuffling 20 cards at a time. You want to make sure that the bottom 20, the middle 20, and the top 20 are all, you know, actually getting shuffled together and interacting with each other, so everything's spread across the entire cube. So it's really important to have cuts in between your shuffles, to just shuffle a little bit, you know, make sure you're mixing the cards up, and then making sure that you are constantly grabbing cards from another section of the cube so that all of the sections end up being shuffled together so that your cube is actually thoroughly shuffled. Some cubers like to seed their packs. That's not really my kind of thing, you know, especially when it comes to 180 card cubes. They shuffle pretty quickly. Not a huge concern of mine, but however you do it, of course you do want to shuffle before you draft. And then the other step in setting up a Minneapolis Draft is to prepare 8 7-card packs for both players. A pack here just means a face-down pile of cards from the cube. Is supposed to represent opening a booster pack in retail limited. So smaller card counts, but that's the idea there, is that you are opening these packs to draft. Then once both players have their packs, it's time to start drafting. So simultaneously, each player is going to take their 7-card pack, and you're going to draft one first pick. This is done face down, you know, just again like retail limited. You're going to add one card to your draft pool, and then you're going to trade packs with the other player. Once you trade packs, now you got 6 cards left, and you're going to take 2 second picks. And then once you've taken your 2 second picks, trade back again. There's going to be 4 cards left in the pack. You're going to draft 2 of these, and then 2 of them are going to be removed from the draft. So you're going to set those face down. They're going to be set to the side. They're not going to go in your pool. Your opponent is not going to know what they are. And then you repeat those steps until you have drafted all 8 packs. Simple. At the end of it, you're going to have 40 cards from which to build your deck. I have seen some players draft the second picks face up just because it is derived information. I know what cards I've passed to you, I see the cards that are coming back to me, the pack's not going anywhere else in between, and so you can just put those face up. It takes me out of it a little bit to do that. I like to do it all face down, but it's something you can do, and I think the more casual your play environment is, the more welcome that kind of thing can be. But it is important to take the cards that are removed from the draft and to actually set those face down, you know, those last two cards in the pack, and also your last picks, because that does obfuscate a little bit. There's a little bit of hidden information going on there, and that is some of the fun of this draft style. There are a couple reasons that I really like this methodology. The first is that when you draft in a 180 card cube this way, you are seeing over half of the cards in the cube. You're seeing the 56 cards in your packs, and then you're seeing everything but the first picks of the other player, so you're seeing 48 cards there. So over 100 cards for the 180 card cube, and then you only end up with 40, so it's not like in deck build you're going to be facing overwhelming decisions. So you get a lot of agency in the draft without it being super overwhelming, which is something I really enjoy and something I see as a flaw in a lot of other drafting methodologies. I also really like the way that multiple second picks and having extra cards in the pack kind of simulate the experience of having more players in the draft. You can't just take one card and then expect two cards that synergize really well to come back around. You actually have to take a risk. When you open your pack, if you really want two cards, you can at most take one of them on your first pick, and then you have to deal with what the table is going to do. You know, how is your opponent going to approach this? Are they going to take the other card that you want? If you pass two things that play well together, are you going to expect them to take both of those cards? And then you get information based off of how they approach that. So you're getting a read off of your opponent. This draft methodology is very effective in players playing against each other, while also kind of giving a little bit more of that uncertainty that you would get playing in a draft with more players seated at the table. In particular, not knowing those last two picks, which two cards your opponent is drafting third and which two are removed from the draft, means that even though you see so much information face up, you can't be 100% confident in most of the picks of the draft. My preferred cube experience involves players playing with coherent, consistent, and reasonably powerful decks, and this methodology just delivers across the board on that front. I've been very happy drafting this way for years now. And one last thing I want to do today is show how you can practice this draft style on Cube Cobra. Here I am on the Cube Cobra page for the original recipe Tubert, banner, ads, and all. So if you want to playtest a draft, you just go over to the playtest tab here. There are some default methodologies already baked into the website. Notably, the prompts here, they don't account for how many cards are in the cube, so this is just a standard 8-player draft here, 3 15s with 8 players. It won't let you try to do this because there's not enough cards in the cube. Unable to create draft, not enough cards. So you can just do 4-player drafts pretty easily. Just change that 8 to 4. There's your 180 cards. You can start a draft that way. On the We Will Be Cubing stream, we always do 5 9-card packs for our 4-player drafts. Just you get more first picks, you see more packs that way. But anyway, that's not what we're doing today. We need to create our own custom draft format, which you can do by clicking on Create Custom Draft Format. It's going to ask you how many seats. We're going to be playing with 2. Of course, we want to name this. This is Minneapolis Draft. I can spell Minneapolis. And then, you know, allow the number of copies of each card in the cube. That's all good. Don't really need a description. You could certainly write one. And then this just gives you the default 15 card pack here. And it's 3 15s, just like an 8-player draft again. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the other 2 packs. And then we want to mess with our first pack here. So we don't want 15 cards. So we're going to remove some of these card slots. We only want 7. And then we need steps for drafting. So we're going to first pick a card. We're going to pass. We're going to pick 2 cards. We're going to pass. We're going to pick 2 more cards. And then we're going to trash the last 2 cards. Amusingly, you can force the client to pass the trash cards. If you wanted to do it face up, you would put another pass here, and then you would look at the 2 cards you're removing from the draft. But anyway, we got our first pick, our 2 second picks, our 2 third picks, the 2 cards leaving the draft. That means these rest of the steps we do not need. And then we just need to duplicate this pack. And we're going to need 8 of these. So you just hit duplicate pack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That should give us 8 packs with 7 cards each. And we save that. Now let's go and see how that works. So we have a Minneapolis Draft, 2 seats. Let's start our draft. All right, 7 card pack from the original recipe tuber. I'm not going to sit here and do the entire draft. One thing I'll say is that the bots, the long and short of it is that things that humans are very good at, art, drafting being a form of art, robots will never be good at. So no matter how good you can train a draft robot to understand first picks, second picks, whatever your pick orders, the things are still going to get messy. Every time I do these bot drafts, the decks come out weird. Sometimes the bots end up with some cool stuff. Sometimes they seem very confused. Anyway, this gives you a general feel. I think mostly when I do my practice drafts on Cobra, this can inform if I see a card in a pack and I keep seeing it and I think, all right, I'm literally never taking that. You know, that can inform my cube curation. Or on the other side of things, cards that I'm always taking. Like the Call Epiphany card, I think, stands out as a really strong first pick here. And then I guess just to show that this works, I'm just taking cards largely at random. You know, I got past 2 white cards, I'll take 2 white cards. And then I get my last picks here. And then there's these other 2 cards that were in that pack. You have to manually trash them, and then you're on your second pack. And you do your 8 packs, and then you'll be able to look at your draft pool, build your deck. Anyway, that is how to Minneapolis Draft. I hope that this was a useful video, both for people who have never drafted in this way before, and maybe seeing this look under the hood on how to actually implement this on Cobra is useful for you exploring your own designs in that way. Appreciate y'all watching. Take it easy, and I will see you next time.